Right, I absolutely agree with Taker on that one.
Yeah, and so that could be part of the reason why Desmond Wolfe is not in TNA if he has something like hepatitis, where blood is getting exchanged, and people might say, well, basketball, Magic Johnson played with AIDS. I'm like, yeah, but there's a lot more bleeding when a guy gets cut up in wrestling than there is in a little scrape in basketball.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Right. And even basketball, I'm not entirely keen on Magic Johnson. Like that, I don't know, that would have bothered me.
Yeah, well, anyway, getting back to the Lockdown, which up next was the Knockouts title match, which if you went up to get a soda at the start of this match, you missed it. Mickie James versus Madison Rayne. This is a debate we kind of had last year at Lockdown, where it's like, okay, plan for the title versus what's actually happening with the wrestler. Last year we saw the X Division title go to Kazarian, which apparently that was the plan all along. And even though Doug Williams wasn't there because he got stranded by a volcano, and this year we see Mickie win the belt, even though she was still dealing with her separated shoulder. So what they did was they had the very short match where Mickie just goes nuts, throws Madison into the walls, and hits the big DDT and gets the victory. I mean, you really can't call this a match.
Yeah, I wasn't surprised when I heard how this match turned out, because I kept thinking, Mickey's injury can she go, or what's the deal here? And, it was one of those rock and a hard place situations where, they planned for Mickie to win the title, and I don't know, it was just a strange situation. I don't know. I wasn't surprised that it turned out the way it did when I heard about it.
It may also be one of those things where you're crossing your fingers and people are saying, and it's like, well, can you work? I hope. I'm trying. I'm not using it. Not doing anything that would put undue stress on it. I'm going to rehab and different things, but the body heals at different rates for everybody. Unfortunately, I think they just figured, okay, Mickey's still hurt. People are going to pop no matter what we do, and at least the way they did it, it wasn't like just a quick roll-up. They actually did, if like you were kind of looking for something, at least there was some action here, unfortunately, which is Madison being super balled off the cage. So Madison loses, and I guess we'll see now where they go with the knockout title on Mickie. But congratulations.
The knockout division is another one that could benefit from some fresh talent. I'm trying to think of who they could give. Go ahead.
You know what? The pieces are there. I think that with Sarita, even though she's doing the whole Mexican-American gimmick, and she has the always disappearing Knockouts tag team titles, you know what? I think there's a chance to push her. You could have the Mexican girl versus the country girl.
That'd be interesting.
Serena
Deeb is getting a tryout at the TNA tapings tonight, and she's a good worker.
Hopefully she won't get drunk and piss people off, because that's apparently why she got fired.
Well, you have to play the character, Nick.
But wait a minute, she was straight edge, so she should have given up the drinking.
That was one of the silliest reasons for firing a person that I'd ever read, and it was one of those things where I pray to God that's not true, because that is the dumbest thing I've ever heard.
Well, let's not forget, Patrick, this is the same company that fired Mickie James, apparently because they thought she gained too much weight.
Is that why? Well, I've heard all kinds of stories on that. I've heard they didn't like it, that she was pursuing a country music career. I heard that apparently she had problems with Cena and Batista, and, if you have problems with them, you're out the door. That's just the way it is. I've heard all kinds of things on why she was let go.
Yeah. But at the end of the day, they still fired easily their most popular woman at the time.
Yeah. True.
All right, up next was Joe versus D'Angelo Dinero, and
which I'm hearing was a pretty good match.
Yeah, it was. I would say it was definitely the best match these two guys have had together. It was also kind of nice because I think they kind of got back to basic Joe, which is just destroy, which was pretty much all Joe was doing. He was the smashing machine, old style, and pretty good little finish. They had Joe do the Kikita clutch and the muscle buster. I actually like the finish because what happened was De Niro went for the DDE, he did that jump. Joe turns around, he catches him, throws him into the cage. He's sitting on the top. Joe grabs him into the muscle buster, and then he does the clutch for the submission victory. And that hopefully will end this feud.
Right, the feud, and it's a shame, too, because I like both guys, and I think the dynamic of you have Joe, who's a killing machine, and you have the Pope, who's a motor mouth, and like, okay, that should work, but the storyline just never got on track. It was just filled with so many, like, weird points where I just didn't understand what was going on, and the feud just wasn't any good, and it's a shame, because I think a feud between these two could be very good, because the basics of the characters should work and put together. It's the same thing that Christian and Joe had back in 2007. It worked because you had Joe, who was a killing machine, and you had Christian, who was this loudmouth who, you know, you wanted to see get his ass kicked.
Right. And up next was Matt Morgan versus Hernandez. I'll be honest, I had a lot of concerns about this match because we've seen Morgan and Hernandez wrestle each other before, and there's always been something missing. It's like, okay, this could have been better. This definitely could have been better. It could have been a lot better. And you know what? This was finally like the one where they finally lived up to the promise. I mean, I'm not saying this was match of the year, the greatest match ever. I'll say it was a pretty good match. I really liked the finish where they had Hernandez going for like a flying shoulder tackle, and as he came flying off the top rope, Morgan just kicked him in the head, because I thought that was a pretty cool spot, because you have, you know, two huge heavyweights, you know, showing that they actually can be pretty athletic.
Well, that's what those two guys are kind of known for. So, yeah, I enjoyed the cage match they had last year. What was it, at Victory Road? I thought that was a good, solid match. Would you say it was better than that one?
I'll be honest, I'd say it's a little bit better, but I could also certainly see, like, next week if you came on this show and said, Nick, the Victory Road one was better.
Well, I'd have to watch them both, but yeah, okay. I'd have to rewatch the Victory Road match, but
yes.
Yeah, all right.
And then, ladies and gentlemen, we have the match that James Walsh declared was better than Undertaker versus Triple H. I'm going to remind you of that because if he says that he's not trying to blow smoke up your ass, if I say it, it's because I'm a TNA fan, apparently, even though I do, these are actually what I believe. It was Jeff Jarrett versus Kurt Angle in the 2 out of 3 falls rule, basically. But I do have one major complaint. Brian Hebner, know the freaking fall you're in. Because early on in this match, Jeff Jarrett put Kurt Angle in a figure 4, and this is the submission fall. Brian Hebner keeps counting Kurt's shoulders down.
I heard about that. Poor kid.
Yeah. Look, I know he's Earl Hebner's son, but he's not a kid anymore. He's been doing this a very long time.
Oh, man. You know what? I remember, God, it might, I don't think it was it Earl? Okay, and go back and watch Lockdown 2006. AJ, it started off, Lethal Lockdown, it started off with AJ and one of the AMW guys, I think Chris Harris, don't quote me on that. And AJ hit the Styles Clash, and the referee, whoever it was, I don't remember who it was, started counting the pins, like, oh, pinfalls don't count until everybody's in the ring. But, yeah.
Look, I'm busting on Brian Hebner a little bit, but that did kind of, like, disturb things, and even, like, you could tell Taz and Tanay were kind of like, yo, like, Brian, that's not what you're supposed to be doing. So I almost have this vision of, like, somebody in the truck yelling at, like, Jeremy Borash, or I don't know if the referees wear earpieces, but saying, someone tell Hebner there's no pinfalls in this one.
That's funny. I'm sure he got ribbed for it later.
Yeah. Oh, it wouldn't surprise me if, like, at one point Kurt and Jeff were thinking about throwing him into the cage. Yeah,
yeah, I've heard this match is getting pretty damn good reviews, and even with the botches that we talked about earlier, it sounds like it was kind of like a Bulldog and Brett situation where if you go back and watch that match, they flubbed a couple spots, but it actually added to the match the way they did it, and it sounded like this was the case here where the botch on the Hurricane Rana powerbomb or whatever that was supposed to be was probably sicker than what the spot was supposed to be.
Yeah, I'll say this. I legit thought Kurt had broken his neck again. I was actually just like, oh God, this could be bad. Because, I mean, you see Kurt get dropped on his head. That's the first thing you go to. I mean, Kurt himself has said it numerous times, I want a gold medal with a broken freaking neck. And we've seen him, miss time recently, a number of times because of that neck and continuing to work on it even though it's bad. Yeah, I mean, and then, you saw the top rope moonsault where Kurt kind of drove his head into Jeff's ribs and broke them, which, again, I think that kind of added to it because you're just like, oh, shit.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, Jeff picks up the win, which I'm pretty surprised about. So
I'm surprised too. It seemed like this lockdown, something that WrestleMania did not do. If we're going to throw WrestleMania under the bus here, look at the Extreme Rules card. It's basically just WrestleMania Part 2. So the WrestleMania concluded almost nothing, except for I guess Taker and Triple H, although a rematch is coming. So whatever. But this lockdown seems like they're going to end a lot of the feuds. So is this going to end with Jarrett getting the best of Kurt Angle?
You know what? I'll have to. I guess we'll have to kind of wait and see what happens this Thursday. I mean, I don't know, just given the storyline with it, if they're going to want to end it with Jarrett being on top. I mean, there are times where having the heel get the victory in the feud is a great idea. There are sometimes where I think you just kind of get uncomfortable with it because it's like, well, in the storyline, it is that Jeff stole this guy's wife, has custody of his kids, and beats him every time. Do you really want to go out on that? So,
the practice should be like, okay, if that's where they're going, then they're setting up Jarrett for somebody else to beat. And they're just building up Jarrett. See, I'm just surprised that Jarrett's the heel that's getting, like, all this kind of credibility and stuff. I'm like, really? You'd think they'd give that kind of thing to a new guy. Like, if they had done this with Wolf, because, you look at Jarrett, he's basically been undefeated since Bound for Glory.
Yeah. Well, I think part of this also could be, though, just the fact that, I don't know what I was trying to go for. Up next was the world title match between Sting, RVD, and Mr. Anderson. I'm going to say that I have to throw somebody under the bus here, and that's RVD. And RVD, normally I love you, but when you try to throw a pipe out of a ring that has a steel cage around it, you make yourself look really stoned, which I know you might have been, but still, come on, man.
Come on, man. Now, one thing I will praise this match for, and again, didn't see it, but there was no dumb swerve. I got to tell you, I was expecting something really stupid to happen in this match. Either RVD was going to turn heel, which wouldn't make any sense. Anderson was going to turn heel, that wouldn't make any sense. Or if Sting had turned heel, that would have made absolutely no sense at all whatsoever. But I also, in the back of my mind, I had just thought up this nightmarish situation. Because Hogan kept saying on TV, it's like, I guarantee the title's coming back to Immortal come hell or high water or whatever. And I'm like, oh, God, Hogan's going to pull a Mania 9 and win the belt, isn't he? Like, I don't know why that idea popped into my head. I was like, oh, dear God, please don't do that. And nothing happened. No, the Sting won the match, and that was it. So there was no stupid swerve that took place. So for that, I will praise TNA for not doing anything stupid.
I will say this: it was too short. I don't know if I would assume that Angle and Jarrett ran longer than it should have, because the Angle Jarrett match went on forever, especially the third fall. And I'm not saying that's a bad thing, but it's also like I could see where they were like, oh shit, they ran long, so now the Lethal Lockdown, we can only cut so much out of it because it's a match that has timing. We'll get to the Lockdown in a second, but normally it's a 5-minute first period. They actually cut it down to only 3 minutes. So I can see they only cut oh God, we only have so much time because of the way this thing works. It's a war game style rule, so it's like, sorry guys, looks like the world is going to have to be short again.